What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and today we're continuing with our 32-team 7-round mock draft, and we're looking at the team that acquired a bunch of picks to move down from 3 to 6 because they have their quarterback instilling confidence in Andrew Luck, which is pretty telling because no one knows where he's at with the injury, but I feel like if they make this trade, they're pretty confident. So maybe all the, McDaniel's backed out because Luck is not where everyone thinks he's going to be, or the injury's worse than what it is. Maybe there's not as much fuel to that fire right now. But looking at the Colts, been very, very quiet in terms of signing free agents. But we're going to list those, talk about that, and see how that potentially affects our draft board. But they have a bunch of picks, and I think they're really in a position to go best player available at most of these spots. And hopefully we can, knock off a couple of needs as well. So looking at what they brought in, they're able to retain Adam Vinatieri, first ballot Hall of Famer, and they signed in Denico Autry, a defensive end. For a modest deal, I mean, like a depth role, and he's not coming in to be a starter. They lost Vontae Davis by cutting him, moving on from him. That was really early in the offseason. I think that might have been during the playoffs. They lost Dante Moncrief, who got, in my opinion, overpaid by the Jags. I think he's almost getting $10 million guaranteed this year, which is absolutely ridiculous. And they just randomly cut Jonathan Hankins for some reason. I get he might not be an ideal scheme fit, but he has had flexibility and has played in a 4-3 before with the Giants. And some people on the Giants, on the Colts side of things, were saying he was debatably their best player on defense at times last season. So, moving on from that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. But, I trust Frank Reich. I really do like Frank Reich, obviously coming from the Eagles. I think that's a good head coaching hire because if you want to try to get someone that can replicate the success Doug Peterson's been able to have, I think Frank Reich is probably the closest thing to a carbon copy right now in the NFL. So, pulling into our mock draft, first pick at pick number 6, I still feel like, debatably, they're getting the guy they wanted at 3 here at 6. It's the luxury of having a quarterback. They're going to select defensive end Bradley Chubb from North Carolina State. I think he can instantly walk in and he can play whatever side of defense. I know Javal Sheard graded out really well for Pro Football Focus last year as an outside linebacker. You would assume that he is going to play defensive end. And, there's competition. But I think, walking right in, Bradley Chubb could be instantly the best defensive end on that roster. You got, Henry Anderson, Margus Hunt, Denico Autry, Terrell Basham, who was a 3rd-round pick last year. I mean, there's some talent there, but you still go best player available, and you get a guy like Bradley Chubb that can be an absolute game changer. Personally, for me, I'm a little bit worried because his bend. Bend is very, very important for a defensive end, and that was like the one thing that stood out negative from the testing in the combine. But still, his production is very, very good, and I think that while this draft class is not particularly strong at defensive end, he's the best of the bunch, and on any given year, he would be probably a top 20 pick, but I think because the top-end talent defensive end is so weak, he's going to be picked here at 6. Either way, the Colts need to get much more pressure on the quarterback, and that's exactly what you're going to get in a Bradley Chubb. Going to the 2nd round where they have 3 2nd-round picks, the first of whom at pick 36, I'm selecting wide receiver Courtland Sutton from SMU. I think he walks right in and, he's wide receiver 2. He's an excellent complement to what they have right now in T.Y. Hilton. When you look at their wide receiver core, it's not very good. I'm looking at ourlads.com for the depth chart. Don't see much outside of T.Y. Hilton. You have Chester Rogers, who's like, your special teamers. There's really no one there. I think it's a wide open crapshoot. So going best wide receiver, getting a guy like Courtland Sutton, who very well might have a 1st-round grade on some teams. I think he might slip out just because this year's top, like the edge rusher. They're going to get some value because edge rushers and wide receivers are 2 positions that I don't think there's elite premier talent outside of maybe Bradley Chubb for the defensive ends. So I think that these guys are going to slip, and with a high pick here in the 2nd round, being able to swoop up a guy like Courtland Sutton that, get more targets for Andrew Luck, but more importantly, he's an excellent complement to what you have right there in T.Y. Hilton and being T.Y. Hilton. Even though there's rumors he might be getting traded and stuff like that, I don't think Frank Reich's going to move on from the best playmaker on his offense. So Courtland Sutton, that's a great fit for the Colts. If you're trying to make the comparison from the Philadelphia Eagles, Frank Reich, Courtland Sutton kind of looks a lot like Alshon Jeffrey, so it's that type of wide receiver that Frank Reich has had success with. Going to the second round pick 37, back-to-back. I'm selecting linebacker Jerome Baker from Ohio State. Tested very, very well at the combine. He's one of your little bit undersized type guys, but I think he has versatility to play in the middle or as the will linebacker in that new 4-3 defense because he gets that flexibility, because he is very good off the ball, going to be very good in the coverage, kind of little bit like Ryan Shazier, but more so again, kind of what Frank Reich had in Philadelphia. We have slightly undersized. Nigel Bradham's not big. Michael Kendricks is not big. Even Jordan Hicks is not your prototypical size. They're slightly undersized linebackers. He wants, get that athleticism, get that athletic backer. When you look at the linebackers right now, you got John Simon, who I don't know what they're going to do. They might move him to defensive end. I think he's a little big for a linebacking role in a 4-3. You got Antonio Morrison from my Florida Gators. You got Anthony Walker from Northwestern, a 5th-round pick. He's solid. You lost John Bostic. I really think there could be almost a complete overhaul of the linebacking spot, which is what you're going to kind of see here in this mock draft. But getting Jerome Baker, bona fide 2nd-round talent, probably the 5th or 6th best linebacker. Probably I would have him at 6th best linebacker in this year's draft class. It's a no-brainer for me. I'm going to their 3rd 2nd-round pick, pick 39. I'm selecting defensive tackle Harrison Phillips from Stanford. If you're moving on from John Hankins, I don't think Al Woods, Grover Stewart, Hassan Ridgeway are like you're gonna be comfortable with that being your starting defensive tackle. At least add some competition. So they go and get Harrison Phillips, who's just pretty much tailor built for a 4-3 role. And, you know, great bench press, showed off great strength. No one really knew how well he was going to test. His tape at Stanford was mostly good, some bad. I think that if his tape was as dominant as when he's on fire in his games, he would be a bona fide 1st-round pick. We'd be talking about him with, like, the likes of Deron Payne and Vita Vea. But he's clearly, like, probably the number 3 D tackle. Could be 4, depending on how you rate Taven Bryan. Gator bias, I'm not going to get into it. But I think Harrison Phillips here, Stanford, is a great pick for the Colts and probably could compete for being a starter day 1. And getting that in the 2nd round, money. Looking in the 3rd round, pick 67, I was selecting offensive tackle Chukwuma Okorafor from Western Michigan. You know, on tape, he is a 2nd-round talent. His combine was not very good, which, you know, you don't want to put a whole lot of weight in the combine. What the combine can tell you is where they are athletically in terms of making the jump from college to the pros. That's kind of how I evaluate it, especially with the offensive line. When I see a guy that doesn't test particularly well, like an Okorafor, like an Orlando Brown, who we just had mocked in the last draft to the Denver Broncos, those are just guys that I think they might need to be eased in, get on that strength and conditioning program at the next level, and finally catch on. But Okorafor's tape is very, very solid. And looking at Denzel Good being the starting right tackle right now, you know what? Okorafor can come in and challenge. If he's a good training camp, he could be your starting right tackle come football, and ultimately, come football season. And ultimately, you have Costanzo and you have Ryan Kelly. Those are the only 2, like, clear, bona fide NFL starters on this offensive line. You need to protect Andrew Luck better, and getting a 3rd-round investment for a guy that could end up starting for the Colts on the offensive line, I think that's good value. Going to the 4th round, 104, I was selecting linebacker Fred Warner from BYU. Again, just very talented linebacker. I didn't watch a whole lot of his tape, but this is almost more I watched a highlight. I'll admit, some of these guys I can't scout all. Scout. I hate sounding like scout because it makes me sound like I take myself super, super seriously. But I've watched a couple highlight videos and he looked very, very explosive, I think, for the Colts defense. Again, like I said, they need to get better. And in this 4th round, he is my top linebacker that's available and could compete for the same role out there with John Simon. Like I said, I don't see how John Simon, he's like 265. He's a big ass. He's a 3-4 outside linebacker. I don't know if they're going to try to struggle and try to force a peg into a round hole, kind of like what Philly did when we switched from a 3-4 to a 4-3 with Connor Barwin. But I think getting a guy like Fred Warner, just get more depth to that linebacking position while you figure it out. I think if you just acquire some pieces, it will work itself out in the end because talent will trump all, and you'll be able to find the way to get them involved in Matt Eberflus's scheme. So we'll get Fred Warner here in the 4th round. Going to the 5th round, pick 140, I think going cornerback DJ Reed from Kansas State. I think instantly he could come right in and challenge for that nickel role. And just, you know, he has the athletic ability to play on the outside. If you're comfortable with having Nate Hairston, say, be your starting nickel corner, he's going to add some much-needed competition there, and you get excellent, excellent special teams ability. You know, I don't know if Chester Rogers is going to be that guy, the go-to guy for much longer, but DJ Reed's a very explosive athlete. I think with his athletic ability, even though he's undersized, I think you can get a little bit outside. Also nickel, good versatility in the secondary. I think they need to add a couple more bodies back there to help out Quincy Wilson and Malik Hooker. Going in the 6th round, pick 178, I'm selecting wide receiver Cedric Wilson from Boise State. He's a straight-up slot wide receiver. This is where, you know, I think between rounds 4 and 6 is where you can get guys that potentially could start right away in the slot. And Cedric Wilson had an outstanding season for Boise State. Didn't test particularly well. He's a converted quarterback, but he definitely has all the tools and traits to be a slot wide receiver in the next level. I don't know if he's going to be a starting one right away, but when you look at the roster, who is going to be the slot wide receiver right now, currently on the Colts? I mean, there's still some time for them to make some moves. I mean, I'm recording this on March 19th, so there's still plenty of wide receivers options available in free agency. But as it stands right now, they don't have a guy that just says, there you go, there's your slot wide receiver. So I think a guy like Cedric Wilson, especially in the 6th round, that definitely has an opportunity to start as a slot corner, get more weapons for Andrew Luck. And then finish up the draft in the 7th round, pick 221, either selecting safety Steven Roberts from Auburn. Again, they don't really need much safety help. You got TJ Green, you got Clinton Gaithers as depth behind Matthias Farley, who was pretty good last year, and Malik Hooker. But I think here in the 7th round, you more so want to find guys that can add to depth, and more importantly, be special teamers. He's the best player available. NFL.com has him as like a 5th, 6th round pick, so the fact that he's still sitting here in the 7th adds more depth to that secondary. I don't know if he can play a little bit of corner from what I've seen. Maybe he could give you some versatility there, but ultimately I think he is a safety. But in the 7th round, you add another body, because it doesn't seem like they're overly high on TJ Green. You know, who's kind of in that, is he a corner, is he a safety, where we're going to play him when he was coming out of Clemson. Not a great investment for a 2nd round pick, but ultimately just go with a guy here in the 7th round. You're trying to find guys that can catch on to the bottom side of that final 53 and contribute on special teams right away. So there you go, guys. That is my 7th-round Colts mock draft. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comment section below. Give me your Colts mock draft, especially when I hear from you guys, Colt fans. If it's your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. We got mock drafts coming for all the teams. We're going in draft order. Until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.